Well, that was an abrupt end. Hello, 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 hello. Welcome to what's not really, is it VOX World? It's kind of VOX World. I am guestless today, although I will be joined this week by some immense guests, which I'll tell you about in a moment. But I thought there's been a lot of stuff going on recently in the world of conversational AI. I thought it'd be nice to jump on here and chat about it, basically. There's been some things that we've written about on VOX World. There's been some things literally announced in the last few hours or days, which are really interesting for anybody interested in speech technologies and conversational AI in general. So let's run through it, shall we? What's happening first? First, last week, Wells Fargo announced that they will be releasing a digital assistant named Fargo in the release of their up and coming app refresh in 2022. And Fargo, the assistant, is intended to help Wells Fargo customers go far. Fargo, go far. You get it? And who knows? I mean, Wells Fargo have had a chatbot in their app for a while that's been helping people do all kinds of various things. I'm not entirely sure on the details of what is immensely different between this digital assistant and the chatbot that they had. Is it a rebrand? Is it a replatform? Are there new use cases? All remains to be seen. What I do know is that it will be covering some of those kind of like core use cases you would expect: taking payments, checking balances, spending habits, all that kind of stuff, which is interesting. I mean, Wells Fargo as a company has been doing a lot of stuff in the conversational AI and speech technology space. They've been doing things like voice biometrics in the contact center for a long time. Obviously, as I mentioned, a chatbot that they've had on their website. But yeah, so they're experienced. Basically, they're experienced in this kind of stuff. But this is the first time they've officially, I suppose, branded their chatbot or their conversational capabilities as an assistant, which is interesting because if you look at your likes of Bank of America, you look at Capital One, they've had their own assistant since probably about 2017 or so, and they've kind of been doing that routine stuff of making payments, checking balances, spending habits, updates. Those kind of use cases have been happening since 2017 in the case of Eno, and I think 2018 in the case of Erica. And it's what the way I take this, and this is what I wrote about on VOX World, is that when you go second in this kind of realm, in the space of conversational AI and voice assistants, when you're arriving slightly later than to the party than your competitors, you just have a lot of catching up to do. So all the while that Wells Fargo is working on enabling, the abilities for people to check their balances and those kind of like expected use cases, Eno is just expanding, at an amazing rate. It's not even a voice assistant Eno as it was kind of like reported to be when it was surfacing on Amazon Alexa in 2018. Eno, excuse me, Eno is actually a digital assistant that is conversational in part, but also there's elements of Eno that are not conversational. Like there's a browser plugin that lets you take secured payments, basically powered by Eno. They've got proactive email notifications that will warn you of up and coming spending, things that are coming out of your bank or that you might not expect, things like that. And you can do a whole bunch of stuff with Eno across a whole bunch of different channels. And so Eno is a really good example that every organization can look to about what an actual digital assistant can and should potentially look like. So it's conversational, yes, in the app, it's on Alexa and things like that, but it's also making its way into other areas that are not conversational to become a 360-degree digital assistant. And all the while that Capital One is doing that, everyone else is kind of playing catch up, just trying to get themselves to a point where they can cater for those core kind of use cases, which, as I said, Wells Fargo has got immense experience in it. I know they've had a chatbot for a long time. I know they've been working and stuff in the call center, so they're capable. They've got some talent. The leader, the head of digital, is ex Bank of America, worked on Erica. So they've obviously got talent. They've obviously got experience and expertise, but they do have a bit of catch up to play, which will be interesting to see how it goes. The other thing that's happened yesterday is Walmart have had an agreement now to acquire Botmock, or at least parts of Botmock's technology. It would seem it's a bit unclear as to what will happen to Botmock and whether the whole thing's been acquired or whether it's been broken down into its component parts and absorbed into Walmart. Who knows about the details? But I'm assuming, making some assumptions, that there has been some money in the process of being exchanged in return for, I would imagine, proprietary access to Botmock's technology and tools. For those of you that don't know, Botmock is a conversation design tool provider. Essentially, it's a little bit along the lines of, you might be familiar with Bot Society or VoiceFlow. It allows people to create and prototype conversational solutions quickly and deploy conversational solutions as well across chat and voice channels. And who was it? Let me just find the person from Walmart who posted. Cheryl someone or other. Apologies for forgetting your name, Cheryl. I will find it. I'll just head to the article. Cheryl Ainoa. Yes, apologies if I am butchering your name. Cheryl Ainoa has posted the reasons for the acquisition, basically, which is around trying to democratize access to conversational prototyping capabilities for Walmart staff. Now, Walmart, you'll be familiar if you're kind of like in tune with the conversational AI space. You'll know that Walmart has explored conversational solutions over the last few years. There's a partnership with Google where its action allows people to add things to their shopping basket and essentially shop via Google Assistant. There is Siri shortcuts available that piggyback off the back of the Walmart app, which allow Apple users to add things to their baskets and do some of that routine shopping kind of use cases using Siri. They released an Ask Sam app, Sam being its internal assistant that was intended to help employees with a whole bunch of different tasks. Like, if you're in a shop, in a Walmart store, you can ask Sam what aisle are the eggs on, for argument's sake, and it will point you there. You can check prices, you can get a whole bunch of stuff done like that. And seemingly that's been working pretty well. So again, Walmart is capable and experienced in building and deploying conversational AI solutions. And this essentially is a move to bring some of that technology in-house, which is it's incredibly interesting. It's not the first example that we've seen of large organizations essentially building their own tools. We had Roger Dill from Swisscom on the podcast over the last few months, and they're piggybacking off the back of artificial solutions, off the back of Teneo, but they've built a lot of proprietary stuff as well. We are going to have on the podcast in January Angel Mario Castro Martinez, who is what does he do? He is the lead architect for speech technologies and NLP at Deutsche Telekom. And Deutsche Telekom are another company who have been essentially building their own internal capabilities around conversational AI. They've essentially built an entire platform that they've been using internally, but that is also going to be available for external usage, essentially. So it's weird how conversational AI is seeing all kinds of various companies creating tools that can be used by essentially anybody in the market. You would expect it to be startups and things like that, and you have the big companies like Amazon and stuff who are creating the tooling, but actually a lot of organizations are creating bespoke tooling for this kind of technology. Comwave is another example, the Canadian telecom provider. We had Justin Randall, who was the head of innovation at Comwave, and although they were building on the back of Dialogflow, they essentially had to build a whole bunch of tools behind the scenes for dialogue management, and they intended to repurpose that and have that available to other telecom providers to utilize as well. Essentially, it's making the insides, the innards of Penny, its assistant, available for external consumption, and so it's interesting how these technologies are kind of like either being consumed by organizations to use as their own proprietary technology. You could think of Apple when it acquired Pullstring doing that exact same thing. It's taking sophisticated conversational tooling, bringing it in house so that it can utilize it for its own needs. And at the same time, this is what Walmart is doing with BotMock, taking BotMock, absorbing its technology, likely working it into its current workflow and implementation pipeline, either as it currently stands or potentially, pulling it apart and integrating bits of it into its current architecture. But at the same time, the inverse is happening, where you've got organizations like Comwave and Deutsche Telekom who are building their own solutions in house and then making that available for public consumption, which is interesting. Now, BMW have a lot of proprietary technology as well that they've been working on, not yet available externally, but who knows where that will go. But it's interesting. Botmock were actually the very first sponsor of VUX World back in 2018, and so a big congratulations to Obaid Ahmed and Brielle Nikolov and the whole team there, doing some fantastic stuff. So we'll see how that goes. Well, it's a bit of a shame. I always think it's a bit of a shame when you see companies get acquired like that, because Botmock managed to position itself right at the heart of the conversation design community, and got a really good reputation for being a true kind of community player. Very valuable contributions on the content front. Did a whole load of work to kind of like step forward the best practice in conversation design. Worked with a whole bunch of different teams and clients and doing some amazing work. And so I always feel a little bit heartbroken when companies get taken off the market, because it means there's less available for people to actually use. But I would imagine there's a fairly handsome payday coming the Botmock team's way, and so you can forgive the acquisition. But yeah, best of luck to the team, best of luck to Walmart, and let's look forward to seeing what they do with the technology. Another acquisition is IBM actually acquiring McDonald's Tech Labs, which is a very interesting turn of events, to use the phrase of Ross from Friends. So McDonald's, if you remember, they acquired Apprente a while back, 2019 or whenever it was, and Apprente essentially specialize in voice ordering. There's another couple of companies that do a similar kind of thing, Valiant AI and Converse now. They're specializing on the voice ordering front. And Apprente, that's what they did basically. McDonald's acquired Apprente and started utilizing the technology to provide automated bot-assisted drive-through experiences. I think they trialed it in Chicago. They trialed it in about 10 different restaurants. And it was working reasonably well. I think there was a lawsuit at some point because somebody said that McDonald's is processing my biometric data without my permission, which is interesting. But fundamentally, it is being used to automate the taking of food orders in a drive-through environment, and I think they reached something like 85% accuracy with its ASR and NLU classification, which is pretty decent. There's only Deepgram I've seen with a higher accuracy rate than that, and I think actually also I forget the name. We had them on the podcast the other day. Apologies for my memory going awry. I will find it because it is only right of me to do so. Where are we? Apologies for forgetting the name. Here we go. Sovereign. That's it. I was going to say Symbol AI. It's not. It's Sovereign AI that are reaching fairly high levels, 90% level of accuracy, but 85% is still very, very good, especially outside with a lot of noisy kind of like ambient noise around you, and also when people are, a decent few feet away from the mic. I think that 85% accuracy is pretty good. Apparently, in 20% of orders, McDonald's staff have needed to step in and take over. But to be able to automate 80% of your orders using this kind of technology outside of the home in a noisy environment is are still pretty decent, to be honest. But anyway, it's been working. It's been, like, I suppose the use case has been proven, the technology has been proven, and now it's a case of McDonald's needing to scale that across the rest of the country and across all of its different menu types and stuff like that. Like, apparently McDonald's has like hundreds and hundreds of different menu combinations, and different restaurants have different pricing and different items available and all this kind of stuff. And so IBM has acquired MacD Tech Lab in order to basically provide the scale. And there's a really interesting quote from McDonald's, which is it's from who's it from? Uh, I'll put it here. Oh, it's from the McDonald's CEO, Chris Kempczynski, who says that if we do acquisitions, it'll be for a short period of time. Bring it in house, jumpstart it, turbo it, and then spin it back out and find a partner that will help us scale it for us. And so it's interesting how McDonald's, that's basically what they've done with Apprente. They did a trial with Apprente in one restaurant in Chicago. It seemed to go pretty well. They acquired the technology, they brought it in house, they invested in getting it up to a point where it's able to confidently and consistently take orders. 85% accuracy, 80% of orders being taken successfully, completely hands-free, completely automated by the assistant. And then when they get to a point now of wanting to scale it, not just across all restaurants in America, but scaling it globally across all McDonald's restaurants that have drive-through capabilities and all of the different languages and dialects that come with it, IBM is the go-to person for that, it would seem. And yeah, we'll look forward to seeing how that progresses and how that rolls out as well. And finally, the last story for me is Amazon rolls out interactive ads on Alexa. This is very timely because we had Stas Tashinsky, who's the CEO of InStreamatic, on VUX World last Thursday, and we were talking about the future of interactive voice-enabled ads. And this was literally this announcement of Amazon rolling this out. They announced it on a tweet, which they sent on the 29th of October. And literally, it was like probably the day after we spoke to Stas. And we were talking about the fact that Amazon, as a platform, the Alexa platform, basically had been preventing technology like InStreamatic from running on it because it's against their policies. InStreamatic, for those that don't know, is an interactive voice ad provider. They work with the likes of Pandora. So if you're in the US and you use the Pandora app, you will potentially be served an ad that will allow you to talk to it. And that technology behind the scenes that provides that capability is InStreamatic. And the success rate of that is apparently pretty decent. I mean, they're getting something along the lines of a 20% engagement rate, which is still pretty decent. Think of how many people skip YouTube ads constantly. The only people I think that watch YouTube ads all the way through are the people who have just got it on ambiently in the background and are not even paying attention to it. But 20% of people have been choosing to engage with the ads when presented a voice ad on your likes of Pandora and similar channels. And one of the things that we were talking about is how closed platforms prevent the adoption of this kind of technology, because there's nothing really stopping technology like InStreamatic interactive ads from running on any platform where there's a mic. Any application, any app on your phone that streams audio, like any radio player, any kind of podcast player, all of those things have the potential to have interactive ads on them. Any web browser, computer, any smart speaker, in-car infotainment systems. There's a lot of third-party infotainment systems that are being voice-enabled now. We had Harman and Serence on the podcast the week before last talking about their partnership to bring third-party voice-enabled applications to the Harman Ignite store. You've got your likes of Mercedes, who are basically building their own operating system. I mentioned BMW earlier, who've built their own proprietary infotainment operating system that has the BMW assistant running on it. So all of these things are all becoming voice-enabled, and interactive ads could be placed in absolutely any or all of these surfaces. But until now, it's been against Amazon's policy to allow interactive ads or advertising, essentially, of any kind on the Amazon Alexa platform. And now it is a bit more apparent on why that is the case, because Amazon inevitably behind the scenes has been working on its own interactive ad capabilities, which it launched, as I said, at the back end of last week. The demonstration that they give is there's a song playing, and it's unclear at the moment whether this is going to be running in Amazon Music or whether it'll be running on, specific third-party radio stations of some description, or whether it runs in other music providers like Spotify or whatnot. It's a bit unclear about that at the moment, but essentially what happens is there's a song playing, the song ends, an advert comes on like you would traditionally expect an advert to come on, an audio ad, and then at the end of the ad, there's a call to action that says, would you like to add this thing to your Amazon shopping basket? And if you say yes, then it does that, basically adds it to your Amazon shopping basket. You can go to the app and check out there. What's interesting is that the way that they've applied the ads is different to InStreamAtic. So the ads that Amazon demonstrated are basically full length ads of probably around about 15 to 30 seconds long, with a call to action at the end about whether you want to add the items that are advertised to your basket. Whereas InStreamAtic works the other way, a little bit more like the in-play YouTube ads, which is that you get a small sample of 7 seconds with a call to action to see if you want to listen to more. You can decide if you want to listen to more or whether you want to skip it entirely and move on. And so Amazon are basically making people listen to the whole advert, and then the call to action is adding something to your Amazon shopping basket. Again, there's not a great deal of detail around whether the call to action is specifically or exclusively for Amazon shopping, although I think we could probably assume that it is. And so now what that means is that, you've got companies who have been leaving Amazon, haven't you? Like Nike used to sell on Amazon, they left, and I think Adidas used to sell on Amazon, they've left as well. There's been a whole bunch of retailers who've left the Amazon marketplace. This is another reason to potentially begin selling your goods on Amazon, because now you're able to then advertise to the 30% of UK households that have Alexa enabled devices, and the 37% of American households that have Alexa enabled devices, and sell your stuff directly through the smart speaker, which is something that monetization has been lacking on smart speakers for a long time, as we know. And this will hopefully go a great deal, help push that a bit further forward, essentially. It's a bit of a shame that companies like InStreamAtic and startups like that are being excluded out of that conversation. Inevitably, Amazon sees big potential with advertising on Alexa, and is doing what you would probably expect it to do, which is protecting that access to the customer and managing and governing the ads themselves. And so you can see a world opening up very soon, very similar to Google's PPC infrastructure, whereby Amazon's ad network that it already has for advertising across Amazon's surfaces will begin to include Alexa as a specific surface. It already does have targeting that would allow you to target specific Alexa device owners. So obviously, when you buy an Echo, you register the Echo, you sign in with your your Amazon ID, and Amazon then knows which of its customers has an Echo device, and through its targeting on its ad platform, you can specifically target Echo device owners. And so I think what will end up happening is that this will just be an incremental addition to Amazon's current ad network, whereby you can now target, or eventually will be able to target, users of Echo devices, providing you have something to sell on Amazon.com. I would imagine the way that it works. Again, it's a bit unclear around how you get involved in advertising right now. Usually things like this happen in stages. So it usually goes into preview in the US, which means you need to apply to get access to it. And if you get accepted, you can then trial it. Then what typically happens is it goes into beta in the US, and therefore it's generally available, but still in beta, and it's only available in the US usually. And then what ends up happening is it gets rolled out into general availability across the globe. And so it's probably likely to be quite a while yet before we see that in the UK. But I think if you're in the US and selling products in the US, you can probably trial that. I would hope very soon. So that's interesting. So that's it. That's the main stuff that's been happening this week, and I think there's lots of interesting movements in the conversational AI space as always. If you're interested, we've got a live show that we're doing on. We've got Audio Burst firstly on Wednesday, which we're going to be talking about the Audio Burst platform and how they how they use AI models to chop up segments of long form audio to repurpose short form audio into multiple different mediums, which is interesting. And we've also talking to Chandra Khatri of Got It AI on VOX World Live on Thursday. So Chandra used to work at Amazon. He was one of the kind of like early people in the Alexa team. He was one of the founder members of the Alexa Prize, which has led to incredible innovations to further the advancement of conversational AI and conversation design. And we're going to be talking about some similar topics that we've been speaking about in the last couple of months on VUX World, which is the future of conversational AI, which is around moving away from intent-based NLU systems and into a kind of like intentless, zero-shot, transformer-based NLU model. That sounds very technical and complex. We will get into the details of what all of that means and why it's important on Thursday. It's not going to be a super technical deep dive. It's going to be really a look into the future of this technology, what kind of use cases that enables, why this is so important, and we're going to kind of define some of these technical terms as well. So it'll be a nice explainer episode and continuing the trends that we've been observing around intentless NLUs and the impact that that is having and will have on the whole conversational AI industry, because it is an absolute game changer. The job of a conversation designer is changing entirely because of this kind of technology. The time to market is exponentially smaller because you don't have to worry about training systems and scaling NLU intent-based systems, which gets very complicated when you add new intents to an already large bank of intents and conflicts with trading data and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we're going to get into some very good discussions about the future of that on Thursday. So please do check that out. You can head to my LinkedIn and you'll find all the details there. If you're not already subscribed to VUX World, please do vux.world/subscribe. We bring you analysis like this in written and audible and video form across all of those various channels like YouTube, LinkedIn, and our website, as well as all of your chosen podcast players. So thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you again on Wednesday tomorrow when we're back with Audio Burst. See you soon.